Now, the Grand Masonic Hailing Sign of Distress is a little more complicated, and I need to explain how this works. When you take your third-degree oath, you promise that if you ever see a Mason giving the Grand Masonic Hailing Sign of Distress, or hear the words that are part of that sign spoken, you must fly to the aid of that Mason if there is a greater likelihood of your saving his life than of you losing your own. Okay? And this actually can be very serious sometimes, because there are reported cases like, say, for instance, in World War I, a German U-boat commander has serviced and was about to fire upon a United States frigate. But he looked through the periscope and he saw the captain on deck giving the Grand Masonic Hailing Sign of Distress, and so he didn't fire upon the ship. There are many, many stories told, usually from World War II, of where American and German soldiers would be on a face down, and they were both Masons, and one or the other would give the Grand Masonic Hailing Sign of Distress, and they wouldn't shoot one another because they were brother Masons. And that brotherhood, notice this, transcends national loyalty. It transcends the oath you take as a soldier in the United States Army. Stuff like this. Kind of interesting. So anyhow, here's what happens with the Grand Masonic Hailing Sign of Distress. You start out like this. Okay? Now let's say I was a Mason, and I was walking down a dark alley and I was being mugged by a crazed midget. Okay? Now this is the sign that I would give. Now, handily enough, this looks just like what you would do if you were being held up, right? But actually this is much older. I mean, this isn't just since the 19th century. You start out like this, and then gradually you bring your hands down into this position. And then finally, your hands end up basically in the same gesture as you would be making if you were doing the sign of a Master Mason. Now, but this all kind of flows together, and I'm going to try and do it for you as well as I can. There are also words that go with this, okay? And here's how it goes. You go, "O Lord, my God, is there no help for the widow's son?" And if you were a Mason, you would be obligated by an oath to go and help that guy. Masons will often wear rings or other jewelry to let other Masons know that they are in fact Masons. There's not a lot more I can say about that.
The ring is presented with these words: "Receive this ring as a symbol of authority. Guard the faith, unity, and discipline of Christ."
Okay, we talked about signs, tokens. Now we're going to talk about words. These are the secret passwords of the 3 first degrees. The password for the entered apprentice degree is Boaz, for second degree is Jachin, and for third degree is Tubal-Cain. Okay, we've just been talking about the signs, the tokens, the words, the points of our entrance. The last one is probably the hardest to understand just from the way the term is, but points of your entrance is the way that a Mason stands, the way he approaches the altar in the east. And if you look, what you see up on the screen right now is the way an entered apprentice would approach the east. He has the heel of his right foot into the hollow of his left at right angles to one another. And that is a sign of an entered apprentice. Now, understand something. If I were to stand in a courtroom before a judge who was a Mason and put my feet in this way, he would know that I was at least an entered apprentice Mason. And he would be required by his oath to give me preferential treatment over my adversary in the courtroom. Now, this is the way a Master Mason does the same thing. Now here you'll notice the feet are at right angles to each other, the heels touching together. And this is the way a Master Mason would stand and approach the altar. And again, the same thing applies. If this person were to go into a court or even like a job interview perhaps and want to let people know that he was a Mason, he might stand this way and not have to say a word. It's interesting, though, that Proverbs chapter 6 and 12 says this: "A naughty person, a wicked man, walketh with a froward mouth. He winketh with his eyes, he speaketh with his feet, he teacheth with his fingers." Just what we're talking about here. And people say the Word of God isn't inspired.
I watch how people shake my hand. A Freemason will know a Freemason by the handshake. Remember, I told you when a skilled person goes to another city wanting a job, they'll do that handshake. Freemasonry is a brotherhood and fellowship, helped advance careers. In the old days, many years ago, a person wanting to go to a city to establish a business was not allowed to come into that city, but if he was a Freemason in the city he was leaving, he would come to the new city and he would meet whoever, and through some special handshakes and some other symbols, they'll know that he's a Freemason, and he'd help him out.
So that's why many men join it, for camaraderie, for social, and for business reasons. When I graduated from law school, I was solicited to join Freemasonry, believe it or not, by many Catholic men whom I looked up to, I admired. I grew up with some of these men. And I had a vague recollection that maybe the church was not okay with this. But during the solicitation process, they all claimed that the church had once opposed European Freemasonry. It has nothing to do with what's going on in U.S. lodges, and in any event, you can be a Mason. And I said, well, I believe these guys. I trusted them. I didn't feel really a need to investigate it further, but I did call my parish priest just to make sure. And he, too, said, well, I haven't really studied the matter, John, but it was his understanding that it would be permissible for me to join. And so I got involved purely based on business opportunities. It was presented to me as a young lawyer that this would be an opportunity for you to network, to have a greater network of business contacts. And so that was the pretext on which I joined the lodge.
Part of the oaths that are taken by the Freemason as he's going through these first 3 degrees says that he will protect his brother Masons and that he will help his brother Masons. Share with us a little bit about that.
Well, the oaths require partiality among Masons, because the oaths clearly say, I'll be a good Mason, but more especially to brother Masons. You see, they don't treat profanes the same way.
Now, all of this sounds only vaguely disturbing, but for one thing, and that is the content of the oaths that are given in Masonry. For example, when you take the 3rd degree oath of a Master Mason, one of the codicils in that oath says that you will warn a brother Master Mason of approaching danger so that he can get out of the way. Now, let's say you're in the prosecuting attorney's office, or let's say you're a police officer, and you learn that a brother Master Mason is going to have a warrant served on him for his arrest. You're obligated by an oath to go and warn that Mason so he can skip town before he's thrown in the clink. Another thing is that you will notice in the 3rd degree oath that you swear that you will keep the secrets of a Master Mason inviolate within your heart, murder and treason accepted.
The Mason promises, he says, further do I promise and swear I will obey all regular signs, summonses, or tokens given, handed, sent, or thrown to me from the hand of a brother Master Mason. Furthermore, do I promise and swear that a Master Mason's secrets given to me in charge as such, and I knowing them to be such, shall remain as secure and inviolable in my breast as in his own, when communicated to me, murder and treason accepted, and even they left to my election.
That means any crime except murder and treason, you are obligated by that blood oath to cover. If he's a rapist, if he's a child